This money was supposed to be used as capital for her company's recovery. That's right, she received this money from someone else. It never actually belonged to her in the first place. You're not just going to sit back and watch your family get extorted by loan sharks, right? David blurted desperately. If the loan sharks don't end up killing you, I will. Infuriated at her son's shamelessness, Gladys continued hitting David with the broom. Tia, please, I'm your only brother. Please, Tia, save Davy. He's learned his lesson. He won't repeat this mistake ever again. The couple knelt at Tia's feet and continued to plead. After giving David a beating, Gladys looked at Tia. Tia, you have money on your card, don't you? Why don't you help them pay off the debt? You can earn back the money eventually, but if you lose your brother, he'll be gone forever. Mom. Tia was put on the spot. This was not just a paltry sum. It was over $1 billion they were talking about here. Mom, the loans aren't legitimate anyway. How about we contact the police? Don't. David crawled toward Tia and prostrated himself in front of her. Maximus has men all over the place. If you call the police, he will take action. Our family will be done for. But $800 million of debt with a $600 million interest is just too much. Tia was not willing to pay off their debt. Besides, it was David's fault anyway. Why did she have to be the one who paid for his mistakes? Call the police. There's no way they can go against the police, it doesn't matter how influential they are. Ads by Pub Future. Tia was steadfast in her resolve. David knew what Maximus was capable of. Maximus was a powerful man. Calling the police would not solve anything. If they called the police, the only ones to suffer would be the Callahans. I beg you, Tia. Don't call the police. Tia ignored him. This matter was out of her hands. She pulled out her phone and called. Dismayed, David murmured, "It's over. We're done for." Gladys said nothing. She wholly believed that calling the police was a great idea. Meanwhile, Benjamin, who was oblivious to everything, sat by the side and smoked his cigarette. Soon, the police came. After asking a few questions, they told Tia and the others they'd see to the matter. Then, they left after trying to reassure them with half-hearted platitudes. At the same time, Maximus was at a clubhouse with a chief from the police force. Jackie Cohen, I promise that you'll receive some benefits after this is over. Jackie lightly waved him off and said, Maximus, try not to let things get out of control. Kensington's still under the jurisdiction of the Blythe King, after all. It's going to be fine. Maximus bragged with a smirk on his face. I found out that Tia's backer, the Black Dragon, made enemies out of many powerful people. They're all chomping at the bit to kill him. They won't bat an eye if anything happens to the Callahans. He was not only a shrewd man but astute as well. With these traits, Maximus was able to seize the opportunity and rise at the perfect time. Otherwise, he would have waited for the bigwigs to go into hiding before he rose as the new king of the Kensington's underworld. At the Callahans, the whole family gathered. David talked listlessly. I told you it won't work. The police left after a few simple questions. Maximus should have been notified by now. In time, he will retaliate against our action. Hearing this, Gladys was gripped with fear. She pulled at Tia's sleeve. Tia, these people are vicious and cold-blooded. We shouldn't get involved with them. Since you have money on your card, why don't you just pay them off? That'll settle all their problems. David chimed in, that's right. I'm begging you, please. We still have time. Just withdraw the money. Tia stood up and told them off. David, you were the one who caused this. Why do I have to clean up your mess? Mom. David once again burst into tears. He headed for the window and prepared to jump again. It's all my fault. I should just die. Alyssa pulled him back in time. Though Gladys knew it was David's fault, he was her only son. Since the damage had been done, there was no use crying over spilled milk. She stood up and reprimanded Tia. Someone else gave you the money in the first place. Why can't you just use it to save your brother? He's your only brother. Are you really willing to watch him jump off the 8th floor? Quote. Would it take me throwing myself over the balcony too to make you fork out the money? After she said that, Gladys also made her way to the window. Benjamin intercepted her. He turned and looked over at Tia. Tia, we can't offend these powerful people. Just pay up and it'll all be over. Everyone in Thea's family was pressuring her to deal with this problem. Thea cried out in exasperation, "Fine. Fine. I'll pay. Are you satisfied now?" Thea had no other choice. At this point, all she could do was fork over the money and get this over with. Since this money came from someone else originally, she did not feel as horrible about letting it go. Gladys calmed down when Thea gave in to their badgering. She sighed, "Thank you, Thea." Turning towards David, she addressed him sternly. "From today onwards, you're not allowed to leave the house without my permission." Yes, of course. David knew he had no choice but to agree. After the heated discussion, Thea decided the best way forward was to pay off her brother's debts. Knock, knock, knock. A knock came from the door. "Answer the door, Benjamin," Gladys said to her husband. Benjamin answered the door. A man and a woman in their mid-20s stood outside. The man was in a suit and tie. The woman was in a professional outfit. Benjamin looked at them and asked, "May I know who you are looking for?" "Ads by Pub Future." The man asked, "Is Thea Callahan here?" "Ah, yes, and you are." The man replied, "Good day to you, sir, we're from the bank. We're here today to notify Thea regarding the sum of money she has in her account." "Ah, please come in." Though Benjamin did not understand what was going on, he welcomed them in. After letting them in, he called out, "Thea, they're looking for you." "What?" Thea looked at them nervously. Then, she stood up and asked, "Why you are?" The man spoke, "Hello, Thea. We're from the bank. Here's the thing, Mr. Zenos made a slight mistake and accidentally transferred a sum of $2 billion into your bank account a while ago." The woman pulled some documents ago and said, "This is the transfer record." Mr. Zenos had wanted to transfer the money to a company, but it entered your bank account by mistake. The man continued, "This sum of money doesn't belong to you. On behalf of the bank and Mr. Zenos, we urge you to return it. We're here just to inform you. Soon, we'll transfer the money in your bank account back to Mr. Zenos. If you've already spent some of it, ensure that you return it immediately. Otherwise, you'll be prosecuted in court." Their barrage of demands hit Thea like a truck. Thea was rooted to her spot. David, who was on the sofa, leaped up immediately and yelled, "Bullsh *T. Mr. Zenos gave the money to Thea himself. Who are you people anyway? Get lost. I'm telling you, don't even think about getting a single cent back." This sum of money was his lifeline. What would he do about his debt without the money? Without the money, he was as good as dead. The man spoke simply, "We're here just to inform Thea. That's it." Saying that, he turned to leave. The woman followed suit. Soon, only the Callahans remained. David pleaded tearfully, "Please don't return the money, Thea. I'll be a dead man if I don't have it to pay my debt." Thea sat on the sofa feeling more drained than ever. She said in resignation, "This money isn't mine in the first place. Mr. Zenos gave it to me because he was fearful of the Black Dragon's wrath. Now that the Black Dragon has resigned, it's only natural that he'd want it back. You can't return it, Thea." Gladys tried her best to persuade her. "How are we going to save David without the money?" I don't know either." Thea was at a loss. Although it was Richard who transferred her the money, he was free to take it back whenever he found it convenient. On top of everything, she only had $1.5 billion left on her card. Richard was demanding she return the $2 million. Even if she had transferred everything, she was still $500 million short. She'd be taken to court if she failed to return it. Shortly after the representatives of the bank left, Thea received a notification from the bank. All money on her card was transferred away. Richard must have been behind it. Richard was an influential man. Demanding the bank to transfer the money on her card back to him was a simple task. Without the money, the rest of the Callahans started panicking again. What are we going to do now? David yet again began to cry. Gladys could only wring her hands anxiously. The whole family was in a state of panic. Just when they thought they were anxious enough, the Zenos' lawyer's letter was here to make things worse. It accused Thea of unlawfully possessing the wealth of others and misappropriating $500 million. It demanded that she return the funds within a certain time frame. Otherwise, she'd be prosecuted in court. As the saying goes, when it rains, it pours. Before they could even pay off David's debts, the Zenos had transferred the money in Thea's bank account away. The Callahans were in a full-blown crisis. They gathered. No one was able to utter a single word. The atmosphere was suffocating. "Think of something, Mom." Desperate, Alyssa broke the silence. There was nothing Gladys could do. What could she have done? They owed the Zenos $500 million. Add that to the $800 million loans and the interests, and the amount they needed was astronomical. Even if they sold the Clahans Eternality Group, they still would not have enough. "You're David's only hope, Thea." Gladys looked at Thea mournfully. "How?" Thea cried out. "Ads by Pub Future. The money was not hers in the first place. It was only natural that the Zenoses wanted it back. However, David had stolen $500 million from her bank account, and she was forced to pay back his debt. She didn't even have $500 million for David at the moment, let alone $1 billion. "Thea, don't you know a bunch of rich men? Try sleeping with them. That way, you can." Slap. Thea slapped hard Alyssa across the face and snarled, "Why am I supposed to clean up the mess your husband created? If you're so desperate, why don't you sleep with them?" Alyssa burst into tears. "I would if they wanted me. How would those powerful men even be interested in someone like me?" "She's right, Thea. I'm begging you." David knelt on the floor again. "Surely you can't just stand idly by while I get beaten to death, right? Go find the Black Dragon. Isn't he the chairman of Majestic Corporation? Isn't he filthy rich? What about Mr. Watson? He's a wealthy man too. Go spend the night with them. If you are able to do them, I won't have to suffer." "You." Thea looked at them with tears of rage and despair. What did this have to do with her? Leaving the fact that they had stolen from her aside, they were demanding her to sleep with rich men to get their money. She clasped her hands over her mouth and ran outside in tears. The sky was overcast. Boom! Lightning arced between the clouds. Pitter-patter. As if to match the door mood, fat raindrops began to fall from the darkened sky. Thea stood in the rain. She felt like the grey sky was an accurate representation of her own feelings. She felt that her life was bleak. For the past 10 years she lived as a disfigured woman. She was the laughingstock of Kensington and a burden to her family. Just as things were starting to get better, this happened. Everything was smooth sailing with the Black Dragon supporting her from behind. Now that he had resigned, she felt like her life had turned upside down. "Why? Why me?" Standing in the rain, she yelled hopelessly. However, there was no reply. The rain eventually subsided. Thea sat at the bus stop alone. She was soaked by the rain. Her wet clothes clung to her skin, revealing her curvaceous figure. What should I do? She thought long and hard. She now owed the Zenos $500 million. In addition, her brother owed $800 million to loan sharks. Add the interest into the equation and the total had surpassed over $1 billion already. She owed approximately $2 billion in total. The Zenoses were a rich and powerful family. She had no choice but to comply with their demands. Maximus was also a vicious and cold-blooded figure of the underworld. If she didn't pay up, the Callahans would also be in deep trouble. But where on earth could she find $2 billion? The Callahans were up a creek without a paddle. They had to think of a way to resolve the problem. Putting the loans aside, they had to return the $500 million they owed to the Zenos as soon as possible. Thea still had $100 million in her company account she could withdraw. The villa the Black Dragon gave her as a present should be worth around $300 million. They should be able to easily sell it for $300 million even if they sold it below market price. However, they were still $100 million short. Where on earth could she get $100 million? She wandered about aimlessly. Before she knew it, she arrived at the entrance of Majestic Corporation. She wanted to meet the mysterious Mr. Caden. There were rumors that he was in the southern plains fighting the 28 fighters at Mt. Thunder Pass and was surrounded by an army of 100,000 men. Some said that the Black Dragon made it out alive. Others believed he died on the battlefield. She was not sure who to believe or what to trust. She was at her wit's end. After hesitating for a while, she walked into Majestic Corporation. She sat on the sofa in the reception room. Serena brought a towel and dried Thea's hair. Ads by Pub Future. Newton asked, "What's wrong, Ems?" "Thea, is James here? I'm looking for him." Thea looked at Newton and asked, Newton replied, the chairman isn't here at the moment. You can go ahead and speak to me. I'll relay your message to him. Quote. Thea opened and shut her mouth like a fish gasping for air. She wanted to borrow money but could not bring herself to ask for it. She was not asking for a small sum but an astronomical figure. She had also heard that the Great Four had formed Oceanic Commerce in opposition to Majestic Corporation. As things stood, it was in a lot of trouble itself. It's nothing. She stood up and limply made her way out. Newton watched her leave dejectedly. Only after she left did Newton pull out his phone and called James. James was resting after operating on Henry. Levy had bought him a new phone with his old SIM card in it. James had only just fallen asleep when Levy approached him and woke him up. General, there's a call for you. It's been ringing for some time and seems urgent. James rolled over and got up. Give it to me. Levy handed him the phone. After seeing it was Newton who called, James answered the phone and asked, What's wrong, Mr. Quinn? Did something happen in Kensington? It's nothing much, James. Thea was just here at Majestic Corporation looking for you. She was soaked all over. I think something's happened but she refused to tell me anything when I asked. All right, got it. James hung up the phone. He looked at the time. It was only 11 in the morning. He grabbed a cigarette on the table and lit it. Then, he called Thea. Thea was wandering about on the streets. She had no idea where she was nor what she was going to do next. The phone rang. She pulled out her phone and saw it was James. She answered the call. What's wrong, honey? James replied. I've been busy for the past few days and didn't have time to contact you. Now that I'm free, I finally have time to ask how you are. Is everything all right at home? And nothing. Everything's fine as usual. Thea held her tongue. She knew James would not be able to help her out. James had given her all his money. What she needed was more than what he could possibly give her. Honey, tell me if anything is going on. There's nothing I can't fix. I'm almost done here and will be back in around 10 days. All right, all the best. Everything's fine here, so no need to worry. Thea hung up the call. Then, she wept. She crouched down and cried her eyes out. If only her husband was not useless. If only James were a powerful and influential man, her problems would not have surfaced in the first place. Unfortunately, her husband was trash. James was just a good-for-nothing son-in-law of the Callahans. James relaxed after making the call. He tossed his phone on the table and asked, How's Henry's condition? Levy replied, He's still stable. Good. Watch his condition closely. Let me know immediately if something's wrong. Understood. You may leave me now. I'm tired. I'm going back to sleep. Levy left his commander to his rest. James got on the bed. He was bone tired. He had used up a lot of his strength after his combat with the 28 fighters at Mt. Thunder Pass. To make things worse, he had to flee from the 100,000-strong army for a whole night. His body was near its limit. Not only that, his operation on Henry took a full day too. He collapsed onto the bed and fell into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, Thea was bawling her eyes out. She got up, knowing that this would not solve anything. She went to look for Quincy. Ads by Pub Future. Quincy was working hard at a newly opened restaurant on Food Street in the transgenerational New City. She was dressed in professional attire and exuded the charisma of a mature woman. Upon seeing the pitiful state Thea was in, she knit her eyebrows in worry and asked, What's wrong, Thea? I'm in deep trouble, Thea wailed. Stop crying and tell me what's going on. Quincy hurriedly sat by her side. She handed her a tissue and said, Look at you. You are all soaked. You'll get a cold. Sob. Thea wept pitifully. It's okay, Thea. What's going on? You can tell me. Thea told her the whole truth. She told Quincy about the $2 billion Richard had given her, how David stole $500 million from her and lost everything, and how he had borrowed $800 million from a loan shark. Lastly, she lamented about how the Xenozers transferred the money in her bank account away. Hearing this, Quincy pressed her lips together. Are you saying that you have $2 billion worth of debt? Yes. Thea nodded. Tearfully. The Xenozers. Quincy was momentarily stunned. How could she not know of Richard? She was a Xenos herself. However, her entire family was kicked out and disowned by the Xenozers. I have an idea, Thea. Huh. Thea looked at Quincy and asked, what is it? Quincy said, you have to return what you owe to the Xenos. Otherwise, your family will be in deep trouble. On the other hand, the loans that your brother borrowed can be waived through the help of some powerful people. Thea pulled at Quincy's clothes desperately and pleaded, you have to help me out. I'm not capable of helping you out. Although I am the vice president of Transgenerational Group, I don't have connections with anyone influential. There's only a single person that can help you out, Xavier Watson. Quincy looked deep into Thea's eyes. Huh, Mr. Watson. Quincy nodded. How about this? I'll give him a call now. Thea wanted to decline her offer, but now that it had come to this, she had no other options. She nodded. Quincy called Xavier and explained what had happened. At the Watsons' villa, Xavier was deep in contemplation after learning what had happened to Thea. He still could not forget Thea after all this time. It was only because of how influential and intimidating her husband was that he never dared to approach her. Now, things were different. News of the Black Dragon's resignation had caused an uproar. There were also rumors on the internet that the Black Dragon was in the southern plains locked in combat with the 28 fighters and being pursued by a massive army. Since James had resigned and was no longer the Black Dragon, what is there to be afraid of? Not only that, he's also made a lot of influential enemies. Putting all things aside, the Five Provinces Business Alliance isn't going to let him off the hook after he used his connections to forcibly take over the transgenerational New City. It's best if he had died in the southern plains. Even if he survives, he'd be in deep trouble the moment he returns to Kensington. Thinking about this, Xavier grinned expectantly. You're finally mine, Thea. Thea had no other options. The only one who could save her and her family was Xavier. The two waited at a restaurant. Xavier came as quickly as he could. He arrived at the room of the restaurant in just half an hour. He looked handsome and charming. He was wearing a designer suit and a luxury watch. Walking in, he greeted the two women. Hello, Thea. Hey, Quincy. Thea stood up immediately. Mr. Watson. Quincy remained seated. She sat by the side and gave him a small smile. She pointed to an empty seat beside Thea and said, have a seat, Xavier. Thea took her seat. So did Xavier. The two were seated side by side. Thea adjusted her position to maintain a distance from Xavier. Xavier glanced at Thea and asked with a charming smile, by the way, where's your husband, James? He's on a business trip. Is that so? Ads by Pub Future. Xavier shrugged while still smiling. He knew of James' identity. Thea's husband, James, was the owner of Majestic Corporation and the renowned Black Dragon. He did not understand why James had two different identities. He knew that James was in the southern plains. He might have died on the battlefield at Mt. Thunder Pass, going on a business trip. That was just an excuse. Thea, Quincy told me everything. I'll say this, hundreds of millions mean nothing to me. However, why should I help you out? It's not like we're in some sort of a relationship or anything. Xavier was betting on the possibility that James had died on the battlefield at Mt. Thunder Pass in the southern plains. Even if he had survived, he posed no threat to Xavier. He now had the chance to pursue Thea as much as he wanted. Quincy immediately added, Xavier, Thea's my best friend and a former classmate of mine. We're close with each other. Quincy, I'll gladly help if it's some other matter, but there's money involved in this. Not to mention the amount Thea needs is insane. I don't run a charity, you know. Thea pleaded, Mr. Watson, I have no one else to turn to. Please, you must help me out. Her sad expression made Xavier feel bad for her. He deliberated for a short moment and suggested, why don't you divorce James and marry me? I'll help you resolve this issue. Whether it be the Xenoses or your brother's loans, I'll help you out. I'll even give you $1 billion for you to establish your own business. After all, Oceanic Commerce's target is the Black Dragon, not you. Well, Thea was hesitant. Quincy tried convincing her, why are you hesitating, Thea? Mr. Watson's a far better candidate than your good-for-nothing husband no matter how you look at it. Why don't just accept his offer? Thea struggled internally. Divorce. She had thought about it. After the divorce, she wanted to be with James of Majestic Corporation, not Xavier. Xavier felt irritated seeing her uncertainty. He addressed Thea coldly. That's my offer to you. If you agree to it, call me. He walked out and left. Sigh. Quincy sighed. Thea, I gave you a way out of your miserable situation. Why didn't you seize the opportunity? There's nothing else I can do now. I don't understand what's so good about James. If I were you, I'd have dumped him a long time ago. She then stood up. At least consider it, will you? She stood up and went back to work. Sob. After they left, tears began to well in Thea's eyes again. Must she resort to divorce and run into the arms of another man just to resolve this? She didn't want to sell her body in exchange for her family's safety. Her heart twisted with hate and bile. She hated David. Why did he have to steal from her? Why did he have to gamble? Why did he have to borrow so much? If not for David, none of this would have happened. After Xavier left, he immediately went to look for the Zenoses. The Watsons and the Zenoses were all part of the Five Provinces Business Alliance. Although they were from Kensington and North Kensington respectively, they maintained a close relationship. At the Watsons' villa at Goodview Villa District, Xavier personally welcomed Zach. Welcome, Mr. Zenos. It's been a while, Xavier. They hugged each other. At the foyer of the first floor of the villa, Zach grinned. So what can I do for you today, Mr. Watson? Xavier decided to get into the heart of the matter. I heard that the Zenoses gave $2 billion to Thea. I also heard you've taken back $1.5 billion and need $500 million more to be returned. Zach's face clouded over. All three generations of his family suffered because of James. His father had even knelt before Thea. How humiliating. The Black Dragon was now a disgraced figure, and there were even rumors that he had died on the battlefield at Mt. Thunder Pass in the southern plains. This was the perfect opportunity for the Zenoses to exact their revenge. Xavier, are you trying to intercede for Thea? Xavier quickly cleared up. You misunderstand me. Why would I intercede for her? All I wanted to ask was that you urge her to pay up immediately. No, wait. Sue her straight away. Even better, sue her today. Push her to the brink. Huh. Zach was puzzled. He cocked his eyebrow at Xavier. What do you mean? Xavier smiled slyly and said, I'm interested in Thea. If you don't push her to the brink, she won't fall into my arms and beg me to help her out. Oh, Zach snickered gleefully. All right then. Since you went out of your way to ask me for help, I'll do my best. I'll inform the court right away so that she receives a summon. The trial will commence tomorrow, and all financial assets of businesses under the Callahans will be frozen. You're the best wingman I could ever ask for. Xavier laughed. With Zach's assistance, getting his hands on Thea was as easy as pie. This was not enough, however. He had thoroughly investigated Thea. He knew that James had given her a villa and many other valuables. If they sold them all, they would not have any trouble preparing the $500 million. Through the Watsons' connections, he contacted Maximus, the soon-to-be new king of the underworld. In a clubhouse in Kensington. This was Maximus' territory. In a luxurious room, a dozen or so beautiful women with curvaceous figures were dancing. Maximus was in the middle of discussions with other key figures of the underworld concerning the takeover of Dawson's, Nine Fingers, and the others' territories. They were planning the unification of the underworld in Kensington. At that moment, the door opened and a subordinate walked in. Maximus, Mr. Watson is here. Maximum yelled, let him in. Not long after, a man in a suit walked in. It was Xavier. Maximus sat on the sofa and crossed in legs. With a gorgeous woman in his arms, he looked at Xavier as he approached and remarked sarcastically, what a rare treat to cross paths with the Watsons today. To what do I owe the pleasure? The atmosphere in the room was tense. The Watsons were a representative of Kensington in the Five Provinces Business Alliance. They were a powerful and influential family with assets totaling hundreds of billions. As they were all involved in shady dealings, Maximus could not help but be nervous. Xavier walked in and took a seat. Smiling, he said, your reputation precedes you, Maximus. I am here today to do business with you. I'll help you rise to the top and become the new underworld king in Kensington. Oh. Maximus looked at Xavier quizzically. Xavier said, from today onwards, the Five Provinces Business Alliance will be your son, sir. No one in Kensington or the Five Provinces will dare touch you. Hearing this, Maximus was delighted. He instantly pointed at a few surrounding women and ordered, you, and you. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and serve Mr. Watson. The Watsons had long planned for this. All these years, they had only conducted legal businesses and had never involved themselves with shady dealings. This was the perfect opportunity. The Watsons wanted a puppet, and Maximus was the perfect candidate. As it'd be inappropriate for the rest of the Watsons to show themselves, Xavier was the right man for the job. Xavier waved dismissively, declining to entertain the women in revealing clothes. He looked at Maximus and said, I heard that Thea's brother, David, borrowed $800 million worth of loans from you. Yes, Mr. Watson. Do the Callahans have something to do with you? Xavier waved his hands casually. No, I'd like you to apply pressure on them. It's best if you could capture David so that the Callahans are sent into a further panic. Feel free to do anything you want. As long as things don't get out of control, the Watsons will cover it up for you. Understood. Maximus nodded. Xavier didn't leave. He had some idea about the contemporary dynamics in Kensington. Due to the previous incident regarding the Great Four, many underworld kingpins who had gone to the Cadence Cemetery were scared out of their wits by the 10,000-man army. After hurriedly washing their hands of the industry and going into hiding, the underworld was thrown into disarray. What he planned to do was to prop Maximus up as the new king of the underworld of Kensington. He brought up the matter and came up with some suggestions for Maximus. At the same time, in the southern plains, James slept through the morning. He woke up in the afternoon starving. After getting out of bed, he gobbled up his food. He was feeling less fatigued than before. In a conference room of a military base, many notable generals of the southern plains gathered. At their forefront was James. Even though he had resigned from his post, he'd always be the only commander-in-chief in the hearts and minds of the generals in the Black Dragon army. With a single word, they'd go through hell and high water for him. Levi stood up and reported, Commander-in-Chief, the envoys of the 28 nations have arrived in the southern plains. They are now gathered in front of Palesttown Consulate General, demanding we release the captives. Release them. James narrowed his eyes. Not a chance in hell. In accordance with international practice, demand them to pay their ransom for us to release them. $1 million for a common soldier, $10 billion for a general, and $5 billion for a lieutenant. In addition to that, increase the sum tenfold. Pay up, and we'll release them. If not, we'll execute them all. Understood. Levi nodded. James instructed, Levi, as I've resigned from my post, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to show myself. I'll leave the negotiations to you. Bring along Henry and the generals and lieutenants of the 28 nations to Palesttown's Consulate General. If they don't pay the ransom, execute the captives. Yes, sir. Oh, by the way, Levi was reminded of something. He said, rumors are spreading on the internet that you've died on the battlefield at Mt. Thunder Pass. Oh, James cocked his eyebrows. He had been conducting an operation on Henry the moment he got back. He had only woken up just now. As such, he was unaware of the rumors being spread. After a moment's silence, he said, since the news has gotten out, order the Black Dragon army to officially announce that the Black Dragon had died a heroic death on the battlefield at Mt. Thunder Pass in the southern plains after being pursued by an army of 100,000 men. Levi froze. What do you mean? James gestured casually at him, just do as I say. Understood. Levi did not linger in the conference room for long. He quickly turned to leave. After leaving, he immediately gave the order, bring all enemy generals and lieutenants out of their cells and escort them to the Consulate General at Palesttown. At the same time, bring the Black Shadow General. Remember, his condition is currently unstable. So be mindful of that. After giving the orders, Levi headed toward Palesttown. Palesttown was a big city near the border of the southern plains. Many reporters gathered in front of the Consulate General of Palesttown. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Consulate General of Palesttown. News about the developments at the southern plains border has been circulating for the past few days. There were also rumors that the commander-in-chief of the Black Dragon army, the Black Dragon himself, has died on the battlefield after a fierce battle against the 100,000-strong army of the 28 nations. The generals of the 28 nations were rumored to have been taken captive. What's the truth of the situation? Let's wait patiently for the general's arrival. At that moment, a convoy stopped in front of the consulate general. Levi got off the convoy. Following that, fully armed soldiers escorting the generals of the 28 nations appeared. The generals were forced to kneel with a gun pressed against the back of their heads. The reporters dashed forward and surrounded Levi. The fully armed soldiers immediately pointed their guns at the reporters. The reporters retreated a few steps. Levi dismissed them. Stand down. Understood. The soldiers went back to pointing their guns at the captives. Levi stepped forward and looked at the reporters. You have exactly 5 minutes. Ask away. A reporter immediately asked, General Levi, could you clarify the information regarding the battle at Mt. Thunder Pass? Yes. Levi nodded and said, as you may know, before his resignation, the Black Dragon exterminated much of the enemy's forces during his time in the southern plains. To our enemies, he was nothing but a huge eyesore. I can say with certainty that this is definitely a plot against him. The Black Dragon fought against the 28 fighters at the top of Mt. Thunder and exterminated them all. However, this was only the first phase of their plot. After exterminating the 28 fighters, the 28 nations mobilized a massive battalion of 100,000 men and pursued the Black Dragon at Mt. Thunder Pass. Faced against countless combat aircraft and fully armed elite soldiers of the enemy, the Black Dragon died a heroic death. Levi shed a tear after he delivered that statement. He cried out, aim. Fire. Farewell, Commander-in-Chief. Boom, boom, boom. Artillery rounds fired in the distance. The sound was deafening. Following that, the soldiers in pallet down aimed their rifles to the sky and fired a few rounds. Many civilians living in cities near the border stood up, hung their heads, and observed a moment of silence. At the same time, the scene was broadcasted live to the whole country and even to the whole world. Breaking news. Black Dragon, the commander-in-chief of the southern plains, has fallen in combat at Mt. Thunder Pass. At 10 minutes past 5 in the afternoon, the nation will stand and observe 10 minutes of silence. Farewell, God of War. Farewell. The Black Dragon has fought countless battles for the past 10 years. Perhaps it was for the best that he met his end on the battlefield at Mt. Thunder Pass. All state news channels and TV stations were reporting on the demise of the God of War. Soon, it was 10 past 5 in the afternoon. At that moment, everyone stopped what they were doing and gathered by the roads, on the streets, and on empty plots of land. They faced toward the south. They observed 10 minutes of silence to honor the God of War. In all cities, cars stopped on the streets. Everyone stood up and faced the south. Helicopters circled the sky, blasting the national battle hymn for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, their voices rang in unison, Farewell, God of War. Your heroic deeds will forever remain in our hearts and minds. The nation observed 10 minutes of silence to honor the Black Dragon, the God of War. After informing the press of the circumstances surrounding the Black Dragon's death, Levi chased the reporters away. After all, what he was about to do next was not suitable for television broadcasts. Levi entered the consulate general. Envoys of the 28 nations were here for the negotiations. After Levi walked in, a few soldiers carried the still unconscious, badly injured Henry in. Levi cut to the chase and spoke in a firm voice, in accordance with international practices, you'll have to pay a ransom for every prisoner of war. $1 million for each common soldier, $10 billion for a general, and $5 billion for a lieutenant, and since you've killed our commander-in-chief, we'll increase the price tenfold. We request that you pay up immediately. Otherwise, they will be executed this instant. Levi revealed their demands. Enraged, the envoys stood up. No way, Levi, you are taking it too far. Hell no. Levi stared at them with ruthless eyes. In that case, I'll give the order to execute all the captives immediately. As he said that, he turned to leave. General Levi, let's talk it over. Let's discuss this. Tenfold is too much. We can't accept this. The envoys wheedled. Too much. Levi pointed at the unconscious Henry and said coldly, the Black Shadow General is on the verge of death. Our commander-in-chief was killed. You better pray that the Black Shadow General makes it out alive. If he doesn't, the Black Dragon army will have our revenge. The envoys were appalled by his words. Fine, I accept your conditions. One of the 28 nations gave in. May 2. One by one the envoys folded. Soon, all 28 envoys agreed to pay the ransom. They made the bank transfer immediately. After that, Levi kept his word and released the captives. At a military base in the southern plains, Levi told James everything in detail. Commander-in-Chief, the nation now knows of your demise on the battlefield and observed 10 minutes of silence. All envoys had paid the ransom. This incident has been brought to a close. Yes, James gently nodded. Levi continued, the total compensation from the 28 nations stands at $8.9 trillion. The money is currently in the bank account of the Black Dragon Army. Say what? James balked at the insanely high figure. In the past, the losers paid compensation directly to him, the victor. He had never concerned himself with the numbers. He did not understand the concept of money. After arriving in Kensington, he finally grasped the usefulness of money. Thus, he understood what 8.9 trillion was worth. Yes, Levi nodded and continued, the 28 nations have been bled dry. After this incident, their nations incurred huge losses. It's estimated that their economies will not recover to pre-war conditions for the next 3 years. James thought for a moment and instructed, notify the National Treasury and transfer 2 trillion to the Finance Department. Transfer 1 trillion to my bank account, and use 1 trillion for the Black Dragon Army's military spending. Divide the rest among our men. James knew that each of his men had their own family. The Black Dragon Army guarded the border. They could only return to their hometowns after many years. They were responsible for defending the border and exterminating their enemies. It would be disheartening if they had to worry about their families' livelihoods on top of everything. $590 million divided among the 1 million soldiers truly was not much. It was a token of his appreciation. I thank you on behalf of our men. James looked at Levi and reminded him, this money must get to the hands of our hardworking men. I hope I won't have to punish anyone for misappropriating the funds. Definitely. All right now, you're dismissed. Understood. Levi turned to leave. James visited the military hospital. He assessed Henry's condition and prescribed medicine for him. Then, he ordered his men to prepare the medicine. While they did that, he continued to treat Henry's injuries with his silver needles. Today was a dark day for Saul. News of the demise of the Black Dragon, the god of war of Saul, had spread across the nation. The god of war had left the world. However, he left behind an immortal legend. Especially the final combat leading up to his death. He exterminated all 28 elite mercenaries and even wiped out tens of thousands of the enemy's army while being pursued the whole night. His heroism would go down in history and be forever remembered by all of Saul. At the Callahans.